The House will come to order. Members will take their seats. Visitors will retire from the chamber. The Sergeant at Arms will close the doors. Members and visitors will please silence all electronic devices. Today's prayer will be offered by Representative Loftus. Members and visitors in the gallery will please stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Representative Loftus, the gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Lord, we thank you for your blessings. We thank you for your mercy. We thank you for the opportunity to be representatives of your kingdom. We ask today that your blessings would be upon each member. May we make great decisions that will further your kingdom and impact our people. Thank you for all these things, watching over us, protecting us as we go home today. In your name we pray, amen.
Gentleman from Wayne, Representative Bell, is recognized for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, the journal for May 21st has been examined and found to be correct. I move it be approved as written.
Representative Bell moves that the journal for May 21st be approved as written. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the journal is approved as written. Members, we'll go ahead and take up our courtesies of the gallery. Upon motion of Representative Willis of Union County, the chair is happy to extend the courtesies of the gallery to fourth graders from Covenant Day School. If you will stand. Thank you guys are right here. Thank y'all for being with us today. Upon motion of Representative Carver of Iredell County, the chair is happy to extend the courtesies of the gallery to the Lake Norman High School show formants. The show choir group won the North Carolina Association for Scholastic Activities Championship for 2025. If you're with us today, if you will, please stand so we can recognize you. Thank you for being here. Ratifications of bills and resolutions. Clerk will read.
Enroll bills, May 22, 2025. The enrolling clerk reports the following resolutions duly ratified, properly enrolled, and prepared for presentation to the Office of Secretary of State. Senate Joint Resolution 763, a joint resolution providing for the confirmation of the appointment of Dan Vandervaart to the Utilities Commission, Resolution 2025-4. Resolution 2025-5, Senate Joint Resolution 764, a joint resolution providing for the confirmation of Christopher J. Ayers as Executive Director of the Public Staff of the North Carolina Utilities Commission. Resolution 2025-6, Senate Joint Resolution 765, a joint resolution providing for the confirmation of Regina Smith Adams to the Board of Review.
Okay, members, we'll now move in to the calendar. We've got some folks it looks like that are out, so if your seatmate's not here today, maybe shoot them a text. We're going to go ahead and go into the calendar now. Senate Bill 257, clerk will read.
Senators Jackson, Hayes, and Lee. Senate Bill 257, a bill to be entitled 2025 Appropriations Act, the General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The gentleman from Forsyth, Representative Lambeth, is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today is a great day. It's actually the day before we get a nice break, but it's also the day that we set North Carolina on a path to invest in our citizens, our companies, our families, our schools. It's a day I'm very proud of. I want to thank everyone that's been involved in this process. It's not an easy process. It is very lengthy. It takes a lot of patience, and it takes a lot of time. I would echo Leader Reeves' comment yesterday. The debate here was very healthy. I learned something from both sides when there's good, healthy, respectful debate. And so I want to tell all of you that I'm very proud to be part of this organization and to be proud of the way we've conducted business here in the last few weeks. Do we have a long road? Absolutely. We all know that this is a process and this is a first step. But I think what this House has signaled to the outside world is we're committed to Carolina. We're committed to the citizens of this state. We're committed to make this the best budget we can possibly make. Conference is a challenge. We know that. It always has been. It probably always will be. It's the way the system works. But we will work through it. I can tell you that we will solicit continued feedback to make sure that when we get into conference, we know what's on your mind and what your thoughts are. I continue to get additional feedback almost minute by minute. And I can tell you, we will not be intimidated. We're going to hold strong. We're going to fight for the values that this chamber has directed us to fight for. And hopefully we can get through it and come out with a reasonably strong budget that we can all be proud of again. So thank you for your vote, but more importantly, thank you for your time, your effort, and your commitment to North Carolina and making this the very best state. We all have a little bit different internal GPS that takes us maybe a little bit different direction. But I think there's no question that we all are on the same page when it comes to doing what we think is the best thing for this state and for the people that you represent, the people that I represent. We're going to get there. Just be a little patient with us. I recommend this on third reading so that we can again show that we're unified and we're supportive of moving this forward into the next step. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For what purpose, the lady from Wake, Representative Crawford, rise.
To speak to the bill.
Ladies recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I do want to thank also everyone who's worked on this budget. I voted for the budget last night, and as many have said, it's not because it's perfect, and it certainly isn't the budget that I would have written. But it does fund key priorities, and I believe it does represent a step in the right direction towards fiscal responsibility that can put the people of North Carolina first. That said, as CEO of a nonprofit that serves people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the lack of funds in this budget for disability services. We heard this from our colleague yesterday, Representative Hawkins. There are now 18,950 people on the Innovations Waiver wait list. Last year, at this time, this number was about 17,900, so over 1,000 more families who are waiting for services, and many of these nearly 19,000 families have been waiting for years, some as long as 10, 12, 14, or even more. I had hoped yesterday to run an amendment to add Innovations waiver slots to this budget, but I knew that amendment would get voted down, and I didn't want to ruin my track record that I was having on this budget. But we could take the money that's in this budget for taxpayer-funded private school vouchers and completely eliminate the Innovations waiver waitlist and get all those people the services that they need and that they deserve. I know this budget is tight, but I'm disappointed that we couldn't at least find a little bit of money for some slots in this budget. And moreover, this budget also reduces single stream funding for our LME MCOs that they use to provide services while those folks are waiting. And those funds are even backfilled by funding that is taken away from mental health services in the department. I know that all of these issues, IDD, mental health, substance use, are issues that many of us care about. I may say all of us care about those issues in this chamber. And I'm hopeful that as we move this budget forward on the long road that it does have, that we can fund even some waiver slots and also include in this budget a plan to eliminate the wait list completely over the next decade. So I thank you all for the work, and I'm excited about the work that we have ahead. Thank you.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Wake, Representative Rubin, rise?
To debate the bill.
The gentleman is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And let me also add my agreement that the debate yesterday I thought was very good. And I actually spent time last night thinking about the debate and some of the things that had been left with me during it, and it compelled me to speak this morning because there were two things that really stuck with my mind. And the first one was members' comments on the other side about the last 15 years, it's not happenstance, it is an intentional strategy. And I know that that is true. and I know that it's heartfelt, and I know that it is of principle, so I agree with that statement. The second was the back and forth we had during one of the amendments over, I think a question was asked about declining standards in public schools, declining math, declining reading, and the question was, who's been held accountable for that? Who is accountable for that? And my friends, I say this respectfully, but it's you. It's this House. It is the majority that has run this House that is ultimately accountable for the outcomes in this state. And we all know this, I think. The state is $5,000, $4,800 below the average in education funding per pupil. We are 48th in the country in education funding. 48th. Does anyone think that you can so defund your schools over the last 15 years and escape the consequences of that action? That was a decision. When we talk about this as an intentional strategy, there are good consequences. What was done with the unemployment fund was genuinely good government work by Republican leadership. But there are also bad consequences that were not talked about yesterday. And we are starting to see those cracks. We are starting to see the damage. And the fact is, our schools, our public services are in some cases literally crumbling now from underfunding, especially in rural counties that lack a big tax base to fund them. There are so many hidden costs in what we do. And lowering taxes and cutting services all these years did not magically make those costs go away. Instead, what it did is it shifted them. It shifted them to our counties. Local governments are forced to raise property taxes to pay for things this body does when it cuts funding that it has traditionally supported. In 2020, North Carolina school systems identified $12.8 billion in school facility needs that are left unfunded. The costs also fall to our schools. Statewide, there were 8,300 school staff vacancies this fall when school started, 3,100 of them teachers. It shouldn't be any surprise our educational system is falling behind. We're not investing in it. That's the outcome of this strategy. And again, 48th in the country in school funding. Those are real costs to people, and more than anything that they could save in taxes, when you set someone behind in education, that follows them their whole life. And they will pay so much for that for the rest of their entire life if they don't achieve the professional life that they could have because of their early education. And finally, the costs to our families that have been passed down. When we cut these services, those costs don't vanish. They end up in higher bills at home. North Carolina families now face the highest, according to some studies, healthcare costs anywhere in the country. And whether you look at a study that says we're 48th or we're 49th or we're 50th, we're really bad on healthcare costs. In rural communities, 8 hospitals have closed since 2010. Leaving parents to drive hours for care. Those are hidden costs of these policies and of the strategy. Paid in medical debt, they're paid in time off of work, and they're paid in worried about a loved one's health, and they pay that every day. So I'll be brief. I just rise to ask for accountability. North Carolina should be the leader in our region. It should be the leader in our nation in so many areas, but we're falling behind now due to underinvestment. And those costs exceed whatever we can do on tax cuts for people. I certainly recognize this House budget is infinitely better than the Senate budget. And I know that is due to an enormous amount of hard work and thoughtful work. It delays some of the worst tax cuts that would take us off a fiscal cliff. It improves teacher pay. It gives us a stronger position heading into the conference. I genuinely hope that we will use the conference process to defend that and not slide back into the Senate budget. But in the long term, I just think that to the people of North Carolina, to serve them the way they deserve, we're going to need a different strategy than was described last night, a different one. And what that is we're leading with first principles, and they're simple and they are cross-partisan. I think all people agree with the following. They want to have great schools for their kids with great teachers where their kids will be safe. They should be able to get health care that they need, and they should be able to get it without going broke. They should be able to get preventative care that not only saves lives, it saves money. They should be able to work hard, and they should be able to afford a good, safe place to live. And they should be able to get government services they need that work. Whether that's a driver's license or a 911 operator, government services should work and not be broken due to underfunding. To me, any strategy that sacrifices those things in the name of offsetting taxes will never be enough for our people. And ironically, it will always cost them more. It will cost them more in dollars through those hidden costs, and it will cost them more in their livelihoods. So what I'm asking for is accountability. If you're proud of that strategy over the last 15 years, own that, but own all of it. Own every single bit of it. Own all of those statistics, because our people are paying the price for that strategy every day. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, could I ask a question?
Representative Rubin, does the gentleman yield to a question?
I do.
He yields.
I do appreciate the comments. If you could provide me a list of where we've shifted things down to the counties, I'd like to see it. I would like to remind you that this chamber shifted all the cost of Medicaid from the counties back to the state. We're also funding the cost locally that related to expansion for their cost of eligibility and items like that. We have seen an enormous growth in the lottery, and every single penny from that lottery that's extra we've put into school construction. There's been a rule basically that we would provide certain education funds, and the counties would. And I know that there are counties struggling with their property tax rates, but we've also funded new funds for low wealth counties, for low wealth supplements to try to help them in that regard. So I would be very interested in seeing what you're referring to as things shifted from the state back to the county, and we would take that into account if you would do that.
Sure. I don't have a list standing in front of me, but we can certainly provide that list. But what I would say is just a quick answer to your question. I'm glad we're adding, for example, master's pay for teachers, but when that was taken away for so long, counties had to pay for that if they wanted to have it, if they wanted to keep qualified teachers in their places. And so the reality is that can look like a cost savings on one side of the ledger, but it's a cost on the other side. But I take your point, and I take the point of the things that you said. All I'm asking is to own all of it. And I'm not saying only own the bad parts of it. I'm just saying to own all of it. There are things that have been done well, but ultimately, I think we need to start from this baseline of every kid should be going to a good public school with good teachers where they're safe and they're educated well. And if that is not true, it's this body that has to fix it. It's this body that has to fund it. Some of that happens, but 48th in the country. There's just no way around it. 48th in the country. We'll never get there at that rate. Thank you.
For what purpose does the lady from Buncombe, Representative Prather, arise?
To speak briefly on the bill.
Ladies recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you. We've heard some positive things that are in this budget. This budget could be so much better. I want more for North Carolina than what this budget provides. I want more for families. I want more for parents. I want more for teachers. I want more for everyone. And we could give them more if we chose to. This budget doesn't fund veteran teachers. It doesn't put a school social worker in every school. It doesn't provide meaningful raises to non-certified staff. It doesn't provide free breakfast to all students in North Carolina. All of these things that we could do if we stopped prioritizing private schools and corporations instead of people. This budget includes $1.1 billion over the next 2 years to the voucher program. Even if we don't get rid of the program, let's at least stop expanding it. We could give our community colleges a recurring appropriation of $40 million for the Propel NC program, which is what our governor proposed, just from the increases from the voucher program. That's not money that's been promised to anyone. Just from the increases, we could fully fund Propel NC. This is a choice. And at some point, if we want North Carolina to be a successful state beyond just the next 2 years, if we want to actually invest in our state long term, we're gonna have to start making different choices. I hope that this budget gets much, much better in conference. Thank you.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Wake, Representative Jones, arise?
Rise to speak to the budget.
The gentleman is recognized to debate the bill.
Good morning, everybody. Good to see everybody. I first voted for a budget in 2021 when I was a freshman, and I hadn't voted for 1 cent until yesterday. So I'm glad, that made me feel good, really. And there's a lot of things good about this budget. 3 things. I think the teacher pay raise was wonderful. I got up yesterday and said that my whole family was teachers, grandparents, mother, daddy, former wife, all teachers. And so I love the education profession because that's how we build the youth. So thank you for that. Also, I'm a big law and justice man, have to be. I spent all that time with the robe on, and I want our highway patrol and our police officers and the people who take risks and sheriffs, et cetera, to protect us to get the most they can from this body. They deserve it. We need to always support them, always. Thirdly, I want our team to go in with a strong hand. I was teasing Mr. Arp just outside the chamber I want to go in strong. And y'all defend what we've done here, because I don't know what's going on the other side. I'm not going to be openly critical of them by name, trying to follow the rules, but something's funny going on. I'm not sure. I have some ideas, and we all do, but I'll just leave that be. But I hope we can come out strong with most of what we have painfully, thoughtfully put in. It deserves to be defended. Now there's some other, I have a little wish list too. I compliment my colleague, Mr. Voinsay, for the mentioning the HVAC in the schools. I want the schools to, everywhere, to be physically well done and to get the teachers they need. I think we have that responsibility to education. So that's on my list. I think we need to assist, even though we were jumping over the stream we hadn't jumped over, the localities that need some help with affordable housing. That's a need, that's a basic need. So we should look at that carefully down the road. I would compliment Cynthia Ball for trying to put in an amendment to attract teachers. That was a good move. I hope we can do that down the road. We got the 61 additional DMV workers. I think some of them need to specifically work on trying to get people to real ID. Because after May 7th, you're going to need a real ID to fly, unless you have a passport. So I was glad about that. Now, I hate to come back to this thing, but I have to mention the voucher thing one more time. I counted at $1.3 billion. Maybe I can't add. But anyway, it's a lot of money. And we have a duty to provide basic, good education in the public schools, whether that's a public charter school or regular school. And we have that duty. And I just don't think we can pull two wagons. It's not going to happen. It's going to catch up with us. That's where the money is. And everybody's been alluding to it because that's where the money is. And we might can do it for a while like this, but we won't be able to do it for long. And so we need to think that through really, really carefully. I'm not a voucher guy. Not. I think you send your kids to public school, like I said yesterday. I went K through 12, public school. Then I went to a really nice private school. The government gave me some help. My parents gave me some help, and I worked. But I didn't deserve that. That wasn't something I deserved. I was blessed to have it from God Almighty and my family and that institution. But I didn't deserve it. But we do deserve a good, strong public education. That's what we are about here. So everybody's child, whether you're poor as a church mouse or rich as a king, can go to public schools that we can be proud of. We shouldn't be 48th in funding, like my smart man over here said. Yeah, we're better than that. This is North Carolina. We have great secondary education, and we ought to have great K through 12. That should be the goal. And there used to be a little ditty. My daddy used to tell me, say, good, better, best. Don't let them rest until your good is better and your better is best. And that's what I believe in. And then one more thing I want to say. I realize that I think some popular groups sing a song, you don't always get what you want, but you should try sometime to get what you need. I think it's the Rolling Stones, wasn't it? But I think we need to realize that we don't always get what we want, or we kind of try to give the people what they need. I voted for the budget. I support the budget. I want it to pass pretty much the way we did it over here. I don't want to lose anything over there if we can help it. Thank you for listening to me. Bye-bye.
What purpose does the lady from Mecklenburg, Representative Logan, arise?
To speak on the bill.
Ladies recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to speak on our retired and state employees. I tried to run an amendment on our retired state employees to increase the COLA from this 1% that they're looking to get in this budget. Our retired state employees are the backbone of our state. This has been a long time coming and should have been prepared for. They have served. There is nothing more for them other than for North Carolina to continue to show her gratitude for what they have done for her. Saving people in nature's forest, teaching our children, building our roads. The nation's finest universities have turned out brilliance, directing traffic in flood water sometimes filled with snakes, directing traffic in heat at race car events, heading to hurricanes to save our people. Yes, our retirees have served. They have done their job without the fancy equipment some have now. 1% is not enough. It's not right. It's a disgrace. It's disrespectful. You have had time to work on this since 2017 when they had their last permanent COLA, an increase of a whopping 1%. They need much more. Someone we know will be a state retiree one day if they're lucky. I have even brought forward an amendment to give free lunch to every child in North Carolina public schools. It was shot down because the vouchers could not lose an ounce of money so that rich families don't have to pay to go to rich private schools. You say parents are taxpayers, and you're right, but every parent is a taxpayer no matter where their child goes to school. So why not feed their children when they have the ability? Considering some of the prices I have seen for private schools, I hope to God they're getting free lunch there. This budget will reduce funding for teachers in rural school districts, cuts for Medicaid for weight loss drugs, some of which are used for people with diabetes. Programs to treat opioid users in prisons ended with the Commissioner of Labor and the Labor Department employees are no longer subject to subpoenas, changing the nonpartisan nature of the State Board of Elections by making 10% of the staff of the State Board of Election partisan. And in my own opinion, not enough to deal with the growing problem of the Department of Motor Vehicles. But you know what? We at least have time to include the state cookie into that budget. I like Oreos. I like that chocolate white cream in the middle. What are we doing? What is this? For so the rich can get richer, the middle get further behind, and for the poor left with nothing. You say to the people's faces that you're helping them, but your actions say otherwise. 15 years of a Republican-controlled General Assembly, and it is known fact that the governor of North Carolina, the least powerful in the nation, 15 years of one party claiming victimhood while demanding total domination. If they aren't given it, they show retribution. And I will remind, if I didn't mention what Representative Butler said in the Finance Committee, that if we kept taxes at the level of 2013, we would have a budget of about $50 billion. We currently have a budget of about $33 billion, including the savings found you tout. We can even put some tax cuts and make it $40 billion.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. We need to stick on this
Gentleman is
bill.
recognized for a point of order. He may state his point of order.
Mr. Speaker, I think we're devolving from the budget into personal attacks on political parties.
Lady would just be directed to remain on the subject of the budget. The lady continues to have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With that additional couple of billion, 3% COLA for state and local retirees, free lunch for public school child. I continue to have an amendment that was put down for fuel pumps for the Mecklenburg H5 office. My wants were not good. The workers' wants are not good. What I know is not good. Well, I serve with those men and women, and they know what they need. And I will continue to listen to the constituents that I serve. and their wants and needs are good enough for me. I don't know what will happen with this budget that's up to be passed. I do know that it appears to be that we're building a house of sticks. And if you build a house with sticks, consequences will come. And trust me, they will come. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Union, Representative Harper, rise?
If they asked if the gentlelady would yield for a question.
Representative Logan, does the lady yield?
Yes, sir.
She yields.
Representative Logan, you made a statement about cutting the GLP drugs for diabetes. You understand that we did not do that in this budget. If you have a medical reason and so forth, you're still eligible for that, and it's not because of diabetes, you're still eligible for that. Do you understand that part of the budget?
Was that the point that was out of order?
I don't know. I'm asking
The
you.
lady hasn't been recognized for a question, but if the lady wants to answer, she may.
Well, he was asking me a question, correct?
He was, and then you asked him a question. So does the lady wish to answer?
Well, can I ask him a question?
If the lady wants to seek recognition, the lady's asked for recognition. Hold on one second, Representative Harper. Does the lady wish to be recognized?
Yes.
The lady's been recognized. For what purpose does the lady wish to be recognized?
Well, when I was talking, I was called out of order, so I don't know, do I respond if I was called out of order?
The lady is out of order, no longer has the floor. For what purpose does the gentleman from Beaufort, Representative Kidwell, rise?
Speak to the bill.
The gentleman's recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just very quickly, twice yesterday and today now, I've heard that we could have stayed on a track that would have given us a $50 billion budget instead of $33 billion. Ladies and gentlemen, that would be a 60% tax increase. I don't think there's anybody in this building or in the state of North Carolina that wants a 60% tax increase. Can we just stop that?
For what purpose does the lady from New Hanover, Representative Butler, rise?
Mr. Speaker, just to respond to the gentleman's
The lady is
remarks.
recognized to debate the bill.
I believe what the representative earlier was referencing was a comment I made in committee about whether or what kind of revenue would have been generated if our tax rates had been left at the 2013 level, and staff estimated for me that over a 5-year period that would have been $50 billion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair understands that Representative Quick will be the last speaker for the minority party, and that Representative Jones then will be the last speaker for the majority. So with that said, the gentleman from Gilbert, Representative Quick, is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A budget that has as a policy that we will steamroll the noble goals of building on and appreciating our state's diversity while ensuring equity and includes the promise of reaching the full potential of everyone in North Carolina. A budget that targets those things and steamrolls them cannot have my support. Recent data indicates that around a quarter of all corporations that cut or curtailed their diversity initiatives now regret doing so and have reversed course. Let me quote from an article here. More than half of companies that have done away with diversity, equity, and inclusion policies or scaled them back say that it was political pressure or public scrutiny that led to those decisions and now consider them to be a mistake. The elimination of the Hub Office, the elimination of the Minority Male Success Initiative, and the elimination of environmental justice efforts are misguided attempts in this budget and cannot be approved with my vote. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are not bad words, and a budget that is proud to seek to eliminate those initiatives will not make them bad words, no matter what the vote tally is. North Carolina is a diverse state. North Carolina citizens deserve equitable policies so that all can be included in our success. And I firmly believe that history will bear this out. As corporations realize the mistake of eliminating diversity, equity, and inclusion, I firmly believe that the efforts to eliminate them in this budget will also prove to be historically incorrect. And for that reason and others, in spite of the good things in this budget, I will be voting against this budget. And I watch the hands of time to prove that at some soon coming day, we will again appreciate diversity, equity, and inclusion, because that's what our state is made of. Thank you.
Members, the chair understands there is one minor amendment the chair believes will be non-controversial. House will be at ease for just a couple of minutes. Give Representative Bell a chance to speak to Representative Reeves. House will be at ease for maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes. Chair will look for a thumbs up. House will be at ease. MCA 29B2, the clerk will read.
Representative Arp moves to amend the bill.
Gentleman from Union, Representative Arp, is recognized to debate the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is amendment, the chair's amendment, and it deals with the firefighter cancer. We've changed the scope of what's covered, and the final thing on the second page is been requested by HHS and DOD regarding the child care dual licensure. This was requested by both of them, and it should be fine. But I ask for your vote.
Further discussion or debate on the amendment? Seeing none, the question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All those in favor will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Clerk will lock machine record the vote. 106 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative. The amendment is adopted. Members, will move now to our last speaker. The gentleman from Columbus, Representative Jones, is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members. I think back in my quiet times in the morning, and this morning it came to me from Dr. William Stout, who passed away in 2008 back in district, who was one of the smartest guys I've ever met, Carolina grad. And he had a saying, Carolina born, Carolina bred, and when I die, I'll be Carolina dead. And I think that speaks to a lot of us, and to me what that means is unity and how much we love this state. We love it for different reasons. I know why I'm here to serve every day. And I know that you have the same passion for this state, even though it may be different from mine. I've seen Representative Dahl shed tears for things that she believes in wholeheartedly. Representative Reeves and I have had some spirited debates because he truly believes in what he stands for. And I really believe that each one of my colleagues on the other side really believes in the things that you say. But I'm going to tell you, it's easy to throw darts sometimes, and I'm going to say for no reason. You've got an opportunity to be so proud of what this House has produced. Imagine if you were having to look at the document from the other chamber. Think of the real argument you could have. I'm going to combat what Representative Logan said. I feel like she's wrong about that we're not helping the underserved. I live on the border county, Columbus with Horry, and I watch those tax-free weekends and how much revenue the state makes, but how much money it's saving families in my district by not having to pay those taxes. We're fortunate in this body that a lot of times $20, $30, and $50 doesn't change what we do or buy. But I have a lot of people that's a decision they make is whether they can buy those school supplies or feed that child that night. So while you may not think it's an important move, it's huge. The things we're doing in education, the things that we're doing for our teachers, guys, this is the first time you get to go back to your district and cut that ribbon because you were part of it. You got a yes vote on helping state employees. You got a yes vote on helping school teachers. You did get help to help our retirees. Folks become employees of this state because we offer a competitive rate of work and a great retirement program. They have that security. There's been one perfect document written in history, and that was the Bible. There is no perfect document. There is no perfect budget. And again, we get so caught up in the weeds about certain things that 11 million people send us here to do a job. And this is your opportunity to show you're going to do it. For those of you who have been here in the past, these times have been very difficult for both sides. The process has been horrible, and I'm going to just say thank you, Speaker Hall, for your leadership, putting the calendar out, keeping us on track, and producing one of the best documents, not perfect, but one of the best documents to come out of this body. You've got an opportunity to send a message. You have stood strong. You've not let outside influencers change your thought. We are the House, all of us. Send that message, send it to your constituents, and green vote this bill.
The question before the House is the passage of the House Committee Substitute Number 2 to Senate Bill 257 on its third reading. All those in favor will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. The clerk will lock the machine and record the vote, 86 having voted in the affirmative and 20 in the negative. House Committee Substitute Number 2 to Senate Bill 257, having passed its third reading, will be ordered engrossed and sent to the Senate. House Bill 1012, the clerk will read.
Committee on Appropriations, House Bill 1012, a bill to be entitled Disaster Recovery Act of 2025, Part 2, the General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
Representative Green, does the gentleman wish to take up his amendment first or the bill, or speak to the bill first?
Yes, sir, if we could take up the amendment first.
Representative Green is recognized to send forth an amendment. The clerk will read.
Representative Green moves to amend the bill.
Gentleman from Avery, Representative Green is recognized to debate the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have an amendment. It basically functions as a chair's amendment to clean up some language, make some technical corrections, and actually incorporates a couple of member amendments that were offered that we appreciated from Representative Turner and Representative Ager. Appreciate your input in it. It expands some of the organizations eligible for funding for technical assistance in the bill. It changes which agencies will administer some of the funds, and it allows for part of the funds that we've allocated to be used for septic repair. And we'd appreciate your green vote on the amendment.
Further discussion or debate on the amendment? Seeing none, the question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All those in favor will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Clerk will log machine record the vote. 106 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative. The amendment is adopted. We're now back on the bill. Representative Green and gentleman wish to debate the bill. The gentleman from Macon, Representative Gillespie, is recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As Representative Lambeth said earlier, it's a great day for North Carolina, but it's an especially great day for Western North Carolina. First, I want to thank the staff for their unwavering support and work on this. The majority of the work on this took place outside what a lot of us would consider normal work hours, from 6 in the morning till 10 at night. They were here and they stood by us. Thank you to the appropriations chairs for your guidance. Without that, we wouldn't have the product that we have. To the Speaker, your unwavering commitment to Western North Carolina. You've been very clear, and we appreciate that. To my colleagues who helped work on this, thank you. Thank you for your efforts. I want to talk just a second about the process, because I believe it's really hard to have a good product if you don't have a good process. And we listened to a lot of folks in developing this bill. We listened to the agencies. We listened to our local governments, our towns, our counties, our nonprofits. We listened to the folks on the ground. We took all of those along with our colleagues' recommendations. But most importantly, who we listened to were our constituents. This bill has over $464 million to help the citizens of Western North Carolina. But we didn't stop with looking at what needed to be funded, what might not have been funded before, what might need additional funding. We took a deep dive into what had been funded, and was it on the mark? Was that money doing the job that we intended for it to do? Through that process, we clawed back $65 million and reallocated. This bill, I was trying to think of a word to describe this bill, and I'm gonna steal a phrase from Representative Jones, or borrow a phrase from Abe Jones, and he said, painfully and thoughtfully. Well, I wrote it down 3 times, Abe. I put down thoughtfully first, and I went back with painfully first. Just a couple items in particular in this bill is roads and bridges. As we know, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of roads and bridges that have been destroyed by Helene. And we've funded that in previous bills, and we've continued to fund that in this bill. But one of the things that we're doing different in this bill that we haven't previously done is we are allowing folks that built those bridges before any action was taken to come back and apply for reimbursement for those bridges. You know, there was some extremely sensitive areas that were isolated, and those folks didn't have a choice to wait on help. And they did what they needed to do and got bridges and roads built back, got communities opened back up. So I'm very delighted to see that we are opening up funding for that. Additionally, in this bill, we allocated money for where the aid first started flowing, and that was through our regional airports, where the roads were closed, communications was severed, there was airplanes in the sky. And we believe that we need to look at those facilities and do things to facilitate for a better, to improve those facilities rather. So some of my colleagues are going to talk about some other real important things in this bill, and I'll just close by saying what I think is the most important thing that I can stand and say. And that's to the folks in Western North Carolina. Your voice has been heard.
For what purpose does the lady from Henderson, Representative Balcom, arise?
To speak to the bill.
You're recognized to speak on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As someone who grew up on a family farm in Western North Carolina, let's take a moment just to highlight what the bill means to the agriculture community. This bill includes $25 million for rebuilding farm infrastructure. That means repairing barns, greenhouses, fencing, and farm roads. That's the very structures that help these farms continue operating. We also invested $15 million into the STRAP program, the Stream Bank Stabilization and Restoration Assistance Program, which is critical to protecting farmland and erosion from flooding damage. And we're allocating another $15 million for general debris removal, because even months later, on our roadsides, we are still littered with the remains of fallen trees, damaged structures, and storm waste. Getting that cleaned up isn't just about appearance, it's about the safety and moving forward. The funding in this bill is practical and is going to real work to get done. I appreciate your support for the bill. Thank you.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Durham, Representative Hawkins, arise?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To ask Representative Green a question.
Does Representative Green yield?
I'll yield.
He yields.
Yes, sir. There was a small section of this bill that talked about a constituent portal, or an RFP for a constituent portal, and it didn't have any dollars beside it. I think that's first, let me congratulate whoever put that provision into the bill, because the ability to hear from such a wide range of constituents so that every agency could interact with them is absolutely where we need to be. But I just wanted to understand a little bit about the RFP, the process, and the dollars that are going to be associated with building such an incredible opportunity.
Mr. Speaker, could I defer to Representative Johnson, who was an advocate for this particular provision?
Representative Johnson, do you yield?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I yield. And on that, what we want is what I described in committee as a one-stop shop for people to go in, and there's a tab for whatever they need, and it links to whether it be federal agencies, whether it links to state agencies, volunteer groups that may be working in the area, but it's one place they can go where it's just, right now, if you've lost your home and you've lost everything, you don't know where to turn. You're truly just kind of out on an island. Now you have one place you can go, and I know one issue that was brought up in committee was, what if you don't have access? Well, we're working through the DIT in our budget that we just passed, working with DIT, set up places you can go, get access to internet, and access this portal. So I hope that answers the question, but thank you.
Follow-up.
Follow-ups?
And so just to be direct about is there a cost associated yet? And maybe there's not, and that's completely fine.
There is a $3 million allocation in this relief bill. It's $3 million that'll go to DIT for them to do the RFP process and partner with them to make it, I said, as user-friendly as possible.
Thank you. Speak to the bill.
You're recognized to speak on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I first want to thank the architects of this bill and the entire body for their commitment to Western North Carolina. As a native North Carolinian, I've seen people lose everything, including family members. And some people honestly are still recovering in parts of North Carolina that I know very directly. And so it is with incredible pride that when I am out in my own community or when we're explaining the budget and the constraints, we proudly say that we are taking care of our own in the West. And so thank you for pulling this together. Thank you for answering the question, and I look forward to everyone's green vote on this bill.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Swain, Representative Clampett, arise?
Speak on the bill.
You're recognized to speak on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a real honor to take and have been part of the process on this. Regretfully, though, we had to take in, like Representative Gillespie said, painfully make some decisions. I can relate to painfully at the moment, but we won't go into that. If you look at looking at the bill, fire is my forte. We've got $10 million for contract services with North Carolina Forest Service, and just so you know, they had two of what we call Bambi buckets, dropping water there in Swain County because we had the largest wildfire in that county's history. I also had a C-130 coming and picking up water out of Fontana Lake. Of the $15 million, 10 goes to the Forest Service, and another $5 million for equipment for response and curtailing of and mitigating hazards. One thing I do want you to know, this is not money that's going to be paid out to individuals. It's for equipment and contractual services. If you'll go to page 5, we give $18 million to the State Fire Marshal's Office, and that's for fire and rescue squads. It's a $50,000 grant. I wish it was $50 million, but anyhow, for wildfire response and preparedness. We have over 300 volunteer departments and fire departments, rescue squads in the affected area. And this equipment and facilities damage is going to be very important. I can give you on a first-hand basis that in the first 3 days, I spent my time at one of the volunteer departments because they're the only ones that had a Starlink to be able to have communication for me to communicate back here at the communications center at the EOC. What was interesting, their commitment to public service in the area, they brought in cots and beds and whatnot, and they kept their station manned 24/7 for 2 weeks after that. And I was in Swain County at that time. But these funds will help them take care of some of the expendables, some of the equipment that naturally gets destroyed when you're firefighting, and will be a real asset and benefit to the communities. One thing people have to remember, a lot of these folks are doing it in their own time, but another part of it is we are growing so much in Western North Carolina, we have what's called wildland fire interface and urban interface, and it's really changed the dynamics of the way we fight fires in Western North Carolina. So I'd appreciate your support on this, and thank you, and thanks to all the staff. When we talk burning about midnight oil, yes, those 5-hour evenings after normal business hours played havoc on the old man, but I was here for the whole time, though. Thank you.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Buncombe, Representative Ager, arise?
Speak to the bill.
You're recognized to speak on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to point out a couple of other provisions in this bill that are really going to help the people of Western North Carolina. You know, I think we've all heard it, and we've all seen it in a lot of ways, but our people in certain places are still really hurting. And this bill's going to really help. You know, I mean, I think we'll never get enough money from the federal or the state to make us whole by any stretch, and I think we all know that. But this is going to make a big difference. And two provisions that I think I'm really pleased to see in here are the $25 million for farm infrastructure grants. You know, in Western North Carolina, our farming's a little different than it is down east. We don't have a lot of big, you know, commodity farmers up there. And so crop loss programs are, you know, can be helpful on the margins here and there, but the reality of it is that our people lost barns, they lost hay fields, they lost cornfields, they lost bridges and roads to get into these places. And so infrastructure money is really important, and I appreciate this body getting that in there. And then the other piece is for our small businesses. You know, we have a huge number of small businesses in Western North Carolina that continue to struggle, and they're not continuing to struggle because they weren't good businesses. They're struggling because they either lost their buildings or lost their homes or lost their people, or they're struggling because we didn't have anybody come visit in October, November, and December, which tend to be the months and the revenue times that get you through January, February, and March in our part of the state. And so those business grants tailored to help make up that revenue are going to have a huge impact, and are going to keep businesses rolling and really help our economy to not fall off a cliff, what it certainly is always teetering on. So thank you all, and look forward to a green vote on this bill.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Watauga, Representative Pickett, arise?
Speak to the bill.
You recognize to speak on the bill.
First, I'd like to thank all the rest of the committee members for their hard work on this bill. It's been a lot of work, and we still have more to do. I'd like to expand a little bit on my colleague from the West, Representative Ager, on our business grants. We have $60 million in this bill to go directly to help businesses to hopefully get through to the next season, We're hoping that Memorial Day comes around and we see a lot of people coming to our mountains and helping our businesses. I had 2 businesses that closed down just last week. We want to try to help to alleviate that because we got to keep our businesses going. Tourism is a lifeblood of Western North Carolina. If we don't have people coming, we don't have anything to be there for. We need people to come back, and we need to help these businesses, and that is a start. We also have provisioned $5 million for tuition assistance for community college students so they can finish their degree. They've been hit hard, and some of them just need that little assistance to help them finish up. We've got money in for our universities. Insurance didn't cover everything for some of our universities, so we're giving them a little extra money to cover that extra cost. We've got good data coming from each one of them of what they need, and we think that this will cover what they need. So I appreciate your green vote on this bill. It's a good bill for Western North Carolina.
Thank you. For what purpose does the lady from Guilford, Representative Harrison, arise?
To ask the bill sponsor Gillespie a question.
Representative Gillespie, do you yield?
I do.
He yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Gillespie, if I can give you some context, you and I spoke earlier. As I mentioned last night in committee, I've been hearing a lot of feedback about the stream debris removal and the quality of that. So the Army Corps of Engineers is supposed to follow the Wildlife Resources Commission and DEQ's guidance on stream debris removal. But what I'm hearing is that they're not. And citizens have sent in footage of destroyed stream beds, otherwise decent streams. It's affecting recreational streams for trout fishing or rafting or important for Western North Carolina tourism. It's gotten to the point that the Forest Service has asked the Corps and its contractors to stay off of forest lands for the stream debris removal. And as I mentioned last night, and those of you who are in the committee, the incentive is that the Corps pays by the pound rather than distance, so there's an incentive to remove more. So I just wanted to mention that there's a twice-a-week debris removal task force that meets to discuss this. It's previously been composed of FEMA, Division of Emergency Management, Wildlife Resources, DEQ, and the Forest Service. And recently, Wildlife Resources, DEQ, and the Forest Service were removed from the calls because of their complaints about the debris removal. So I support the bill. I think it's great. I appreciate that there's more money for debris removal. The concerns I'm hearing about are the safeguards in place to follow the guidelines that Wildlife Resources and DEQ have in place. Thank you.
Representative Gillespie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much for that question and the comments and your green vote on the bill. Debris removal can be a very sensitive issue. And a big reason for that in Western North Carolina is you can't just pull up to the side of a creek or river in Western North Carolina, set up a crane, swing a boom out, grab debris and swing it back and go to your next place. Typically, it's rock or loose debris right up to the edge of that creek. There's no access to it. In some cases, folks hadn't been there in several years to begin with. So I understand your concerns, and to address those concerns, the Army Corps is sensitive to those issues. The equipment that they have is designed to be utilized in areas like Western North Carolina. But despite their best efforts, there has still been some concerns. And what I've seen happen in those areas where those were specific concerns is the Army Corps / contractor met with local entities, local county governments, and they looked at those specific areas where those may be some sensitive needs to address those. Now, from a practical standpoint, and we talked about this earlier, from a practical standpoint, you got a tree that is half in the water, leaning over the body of water, and it's half in the water. The stump is still intact in the bank. The leaves are green. I think that some might argue that that tree's fine. Its stump's still intact. The roots are mostly intact. It may be growing the wrong direction. It's certainly going to get plenty of water because half of it's laying in the water. And I think some will make the argument that that tree should be left. Well, the other side of that is what we're sent here to do, and that's look after the general public. Whenever FEMA comes in, when any organization comes in that starts looking at the liabilities associated with storm damage, one of the things that goes into that equation is how much debris is left in the streams. And while technically that tree's green, it's producing green leaves, and it may grow laying half in the water for a period of time, the fact of the matter is that's the start of a dam. And as more debris flow up against that tree, it eventually builds up and creates a dam. But that dam was not constructed to hold back all the water in that watershed, so it blows out. And when it blows out, then there's a massive amount of debris that move down the creek, and a massive amount of water that causes a lot of damage. So that's what we're trying to address with the cleanup. And I think we are being very sensitive to the local community's needs and concerns in regards to being as sensitive as we can while we're removing those debris. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Polk, Representative Johnson, arise?
Speak to the bill.
You're recognized to speak on the bill.
Thank you. In addition to what we've already covered, we allocated an additional $10 million for dam removal. I would probably also add dam repairs onto that. I think removal, some are going to have to be demolition and rebuilt back. Some can be repaired. The DIT constituent portal, we covered that, kind of the one-stop shop for disaster recovery. State park damages, this one's actually really important to my district. I represent the Lake Lure Chimney Rock area, and if anybody saw pictures of Chimney Rock before and after, it is pretty much non-existent by the end of the storm. That park, you couldn't access it. I think they're able to get to it now, but it's still, you're not able to get kind of equipment up there that you need. So that's extremely important to get people coming back to these areas, spending money, able to enjoy our state parks. And then local parks, libraries, and museums, another $5 million there. And the number before was $7.5 million. So we've got some really good things we're allocating money to. And I just want to circle back to the point that was being discussed before with the debris removal. That is extremely important out where we are at. And to say it was frustrating to hear the delays that were given to the Army Corps, who was on the ground. They were ready to do their job. The equipment was out there, was gassed up, ready to go, and they said FEMA will not give us the green light. And this was back toward the beginning of the year. I understand there was a lot of turnover with the agency, but I finally got my hands on one of the FEMA maps of Green River. I've fished there my whole life, very familiar, didn't even recognize it. I mean, you would have never recognized it. They showed me where they could clean versus where they couldn't clean. And you would have a red dot that was you are not allowed to touch that, you will get not reimbursed or maybe even fined if you mess with it. And a green dot means go ahead and get it out of the river. There would be a red dot overlapping a green dot. They were that close. And I said, so you're telling me all this expensive equipment y'all have transported here, it's sitting there, it can reach it, but you can't touch that. They said, nope. They said, no, we can clean that one, we can't clean that one. And they're touching. So that was the kind of frustration that when we're meeting with those local folks on the ground, I felt there was more frustration in that regard. These are people that own tubing businesses, kayaking. They own lots of restaurants and bars along the river. And they're sitting there going, why is this cleanup not happening? What are the contractors waiting on? I said, they're waiting on a work order from the federal government telling them they can go. And it took months. And I can tell you, going back even as recent as maybe a month or month and a half ago, we were still waiting on subsurface debris removal for Lake Lure in my district. And as they said they were going out to look for evidence of whether there was something below the surface, I was told they actually ran their boat up on a camper that was under the surface. And I said, well, I guess you found the evidence you need. Let's get going. So it was so frustrating for locals who live there to have to experience these delays. And that's why I'm so excited about the structure of this bill being separate than the big budget. That was a huge priority for our big budget chairs, as well as those working on this recovery committee, that this be a different bill than the overall big budget. I think it's terrible optics to wrap this relief that needs to get out the door in with a big budget and hinge all the negotiations on that. These things in this budget stand on their own merit, and people needed them yesterday. Some of these programs, they haven't opened up the application process. It's not quite as pressing. Some, they are tearing through money and need more now. So I want to thank everybody for your support of this bill. We hope to have a unanimous vote here, because I know the people back home certainly need it and would appreciate it. Thank you.
For what purpose does the lady from Buncombe, Representative Prather, arise?
Speak briefly on the bill.
You're recognized to speak on the bill.
Thank you. I am extremely grateful for this bill. We really, really need it, and I am looking forward to going home to Candler and telling folks about what we're trying to do down here in Raleigh. Especially the small business grants. I mean, we've been pushing that since day one, and that's going to be huge for our businesses in Western North Carolina. So I'm really grateful for that. The one piece that I hope we continue to work on as we move forward is the assistance that we're providing to local governments. We do have some money in here to help local governments with capital projects for damages. But as we all know, the local governments in Western North Carolina are facing serious budget crunches, even more than local governments across the rest of the state. Buncombe County is looking at a $13.1 million revenue shortfall, and that's not just property tax collection, that's sales taxes, that's intergovernmental fees, that's services that they provide, all of that. And so local governments in Western North Carolina are making the decision today on whether they're going to have to fire people who just went through the state's worst natural disaster, or they're going to have to raise property taxes on people who just went through the state's worst natural disaster. So I hope that as we move forward, we can provide more flexible funds to local governments so that they can use those funds to help fill in the gaps for school budgets, emergency services, social services, all of those things. But I am looking forward to voting for this bill. Thank you.
For what purpose, the gentleman from Haywood, Representative Placer, rise.
Speak on the bill.
Gentleman's recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A couple of things in this bill are really near my heart, and I want to refer to Representative Hawkins about this. He and I were fortunate enough to take a little trip last year and learn from some other folks about what happens when a disaster comes along. And you have two choices. You can go and do everything the way you've always done it, or you can prepare for the next time when something happens. And the part that I'm most passionate about in this bill is the $20 million that we put for resilience. And there's a lot of people don't understand what the term means. We're not going to stop the weather. It doesn't matter what we do. But we can find ways of reducing the destruction that comes along with it, so that when the water goes down, we don't have to do as much repair. The other part to this is the mitigation. Some of that's going to be expanding culverts, some of it's going to be reinforcing bridges, some of it's going to be repairing some bridges that are out there in a different way to where it gets them to where they don't get damaged as bad. But without some form of resiliency and mitigation, we're going to repeat this the next time a storm comes to Western North Carolina. And I've lived there my whole life, and a lot of folks have attributed this to many different things, but in the late 70s there was one, and in 2004 there was one, and now we have this one. So this is not the last time Western North Carolina is going to see some water. So hopefully we're going to learn from it and move forward. There's $70 million in this bill for local governments to access. Everyone's aware that the FEMA match has gone up, and we're going to have to meet that. Well, local government doesn't have the ability to run their governments, especially with what Representative Prather was just talking about on a loss of revenue or potential loss of revenue without some help. So this is going to help them to be able to meet that match without them having to dig into the money that they're going to have to figure out how to keep their local communities running for the next 5 years while we rebuild. The last thing is rail. And this is something that's a little bit different. If you decide you want to go to Washington, you can get on an Amtrak and you can ride to Washington. The area that we're talking about, there is no other end. There is no way for you to get beyond where the Blue Ridge line runs. If Blue Ridge line is not intact, there is no Great Smoky Mountains. There is no freight that can go. I have one industry that is 350 employees that currently are able to truck their products in, but they can't sustain that. The last number I was given was $70,000 a week for them to keep their business going. So without help to the railway, they're not going to be able to sustain the businesses that rely on them to bring freight so that we have jobs. So there's $9 million to go to Blue Ridge. This is not the entire ask. They had asked for more money than that, but this meets a portion of it. And then there's $1 million for Great Smoky Mountains, and that also is not their entire ask. It is only the amount that we felt we could send them at this point. Thank you.
Members, the chair understands the last two speakers would be Representative Turner and then Representative Green. For what purpose, the gentleman from Buncombe, Representative Turner, arise.
To debate the bill.
Gentleman's recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be quick because the sooner we vote this out, the sooner we get help to Western North Carolina. I just want to say, I want to thank the chairs, first of all, for reaching out to the Buncombe County delegation and asking for our input on this bill. I want to thank them for taking our amendment recommendations after we had a chance to look at it yesterday. And as Representative Johnson said, I want to thank you guys for making it a standalone bill, not wrapping it in the budget, for giving us a chance to talk about it in this way, separate from the debate that we had yesterday. And hopefully this will also make it a very easy vote for the Senate. And so I just want to say I thank the body for their support of the bill and their support of Western North Carolina. Thank you.
For what purpose, the gentleman from Avery, Representative Green, arise.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I wanted to talk about just a few more.
Gentleman's recognized to debate the bill.
Thank you so much, sir. I want to talk about just a few more provisions that this bill includes. One thing it includes, since the day of the storm, we've had so many volunteer organizations up there working before even any money started to flow, and they continue to be up there working. I'm going to, just to give a flavor, and I know I'm going to leave any number of them out, but organizations like Samaritan's Purse, Baptist on Mission, Habitat for Humanity, the Fuller Center for Disaster Recovery, the Red Cross, all these organizations have contributed so much to the response and the recovery on the ground there. And so we've included another $20 million to hopefully keep wind in their sails. And we feel like that any dollar that we can put towards those organizations is probably going to be $10 we're going to save at the end of the recovery. We took under consideration rental assistance and so forth, but we got to thinking about the fact that FEMA has provided rental assistance, but what a real need is there in the area is rental inventory. There were rental properties that were damaged, and there's nowhere for people to actually rent. And that's a cost that FEMA does not help with. It's not someone's primary residence. So we've put I believe it's actually $10 million towards rental property rehabilitation. We recognize the challenges our local governments have had in their role in responding to this and the outlay that they have had, and we wanted to try to assist with that, but we figured that there are a number of capital projects that they're going to be needing to do in, for example, in Avery County, their administration building, they're not certain just now whether they're going to actually be able to go back into that or if they're going to have to do a rebuild. Same situation with their senior center. So we have put money toward those capital projects that they're going to have to do as a result of Helene, and provided some technical assistance in them for drawing down these funds and applying for grants. School repair. A number of schools were affected in the region, and we have put funding in there to help repair those schools. And actually, there are some that's going to require a total rebuild, so we dedicated some funds for that purpose. So since the storm occurred, we've talked about recovery being a process, not an event. And it's a continuing process. We feel like this is the next logical step in that, with allocating some money while keeping guardrails in there and checks and balances to make sure that those funds are going where they go, and with the ability to redirect those funds if we realize that conditions change on the ground. So on behalf of Western North Carolina and the committee that worked on putting this bill out, first of all, let me say I appreciate everyone on the committee that worked on it. Certainly appreciate, Mr. Speaker, your direction on that, your leadership, the support and the guidance of our appropriations chairs, the assistance of the staff. I'm telling you, some of these guys were putting on a budget hat 1 minute, and the next minute putting on a Helene Recovery Bill hat. Spent some long hours with us, and we certainly appreciate that. And we appreciate all the support you've given each step along the way. Western North Carolina appreciates that support, and we will appreciate your green vote. Thank you.
The question before the House is the adoption of House Bill 1012 on its second reading. All those in favor will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Brendan Jones, aye. Clerk will lock the machine and record the vote. 106 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative. House Bill 1012 having passed its second reading and without objection will be read a third time.
The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
The question before the House is the passage of House Bill 1012 on its third reading. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and House Bill 1012, having passed its third reading, will be ordered engrossed and sent to the Senate. Members, we need to recognize our pages before we get out of here today. But the chair, pages, if you will, go ahead and line up in front of the dais. But the chair does see the staff members who worked on the budget and Helene walking out. So if you want more praise and adoration, hang tight. Thank y'all for your work. Madam Clerk, if you will, tell us who our pages are.
Beckett Alley, Wake County, sponsor, Representative Phil Rubin. Laurel Ann Attaway, Rockingham County, sponsor, Representative A. Reese Purtle Jr. Emma Bayanas, Guilford County, sponsor, Representative Pricey Harrison. Natalia Estrada, Wayne County, sponsor, Representative John L. Bell IV. Jacob Evett, Guilford County, sponsor, Representative John M. Blust. Milo Graber, Durham County, sponsor Representative Marcia Morey. Robert Kirkley, Scotland County, sponsor Representative Garland E. Pierce. Sidhant Mishra, Wake County, sponsor Representative Maria Savania. Julian Montgomery, Mecklenburg County, sponsor Representative Terry M. Brown Jr. Anna Sherman, Carteret County, sponsor Representative Celeste C. Cairns. Zayla Smith, Davie County, sponsor Representative Julia C. Howard. Jude Stump, Lee County, sponsor Representative Robert T. Reeves II. Jackson Tuck, Duplin County, sponsor Representative Jimmy Dixon. Pravarthi Unikrishnan, Union County, sponsor Representative David Willis. Connor Wilkerson, Brunswick County, sponsor Speaker Destin Hall. Weston Yount, Granville County, sponsor Representative John R. Bell IV.
Pages, thank you for your service this week. You got to be here and see a whole lot go on in 1 week. So for better or worse, you got the full experience of the State House. So we hope you learned something. And if we can ever be any help to any of you, please let us know. Members, if you will, please join me in thanking our pages. Pages, you may return to your post. For what purpose, the lady from Carteret, Representative Cairns, rise.
Point of personal privilege, please.
Ladies recognized for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you. Members, last Thursday afternoon, as I was driving home from Raleigh, about an hour from home and not exactly sure where I was, it's a very rural area, going about 75 miles an hour, one of my tires blew out. So I was quickly on the side of the road and thought, now what do I do? Do I call USAA and wait for a few hours or what? And here I am, business attire, poor pitiful soul on the side of the road. So what do you do when you're blessed like us to have great contacts around the state? I texted the sheriff of the county that I thought I was in and said, would you please call me now? And almost immediately, an officer, a sheriff's deputy, pulled up behind me, a wonderful young woman, and she was going to try to help me. But then shortly after that, a big SUV pulled up in front of me and backed up, and the sheriff himself, Sheriff Chip Hughes, got out of the vehicle and said, I was fixing to call you, but then I saw two ladies on the side of the road, looked like they need help. And I said, well, this is fortuitous and how wonderful. But the sheriff himself changed my tire and got me on my way. And I would like to thank him. And I would like to thank Captain Eborn, who also showed up, and Deputy Booth, who was the first to come, and just publicly say thank you very, very much to them. Thank you.
Members, the chair sees a group here today from Davis Townsend Elementary School in Lexington and Davidson County. And so upon motion of Representative Potts and Watford of Davidson County, the chair would like to extend the courtesies of the gallery to these fine students who are here with us today. If you will, please stand so we can recognize you all. Thank you for being with us. For what purpose, the gentleman from Columbus, Representative Jones, rise.
For an announcement.
Gentleman's recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Republicans, very quickly, 12:28, immediately after caucus. Will not keep you but just a few moments.
Waiting for the booze. For what purpose does the gentleman from Wake, Representative Robertson, arise?
Point of personal privilege.
Gentleman's recognized for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, on behalf of my family, we would just like to thank you all for your love and your compassion during the time of my sister's death. She's in a much better place. It's been a tough 2 weeks. Her best friend, who happens to be her cousin, died of a broken heart a few days later, followed by an aunt. So we're still grieving, but we are stronger, we're a unit, and some good has come out of her untimely death. It has brought our family closer together. So on behalf of my family, we would just like to thank you all for the outpouring of love and compassion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Sir. And Representative Robertson, you'll continue to be in our prayers. It says a lot about your character that you could be here this week after dealing with so much loss. So if we can help you, please let us know. We'll continue to pray for you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Polk, Representative Johnson, arise?
Thank you, Speaker. For a point of personal privilege.
Gentleman's recognized for a point of personal privilege.
Now that we are past the Helene bill and it was unanimous vote, that is great. I thought it was more appropriate we did it after the vote. I wanted to tell a story, and Representative Green doesn't know I'm going to tell this, but right after the storm hit, and this was when things were really bad. I mean, this is when things were, people were still trying to find where loved ones were. We went up to, toured my area, we'll call him Representative Scott. Pastor Paul Scott was with us, and some of these areas we had to get to up there we could only get to by helicopter. And I don't like heights, but I have a really strict policy that when I'm getting on an airplane, I got to have a pastor with me. Just make sure everything goes good. Paul Scott was with me, and former Speaker Tim Moore. We go up there, and Tim told us on the way up there, he said, we've heard some rumors that Dudley lost a lot up there, and we don't know what kind of shape he's going to be in. And you don't know what you're going to see when you get up there. You don't know how bad it's going to be, and you can't really prepare yourself for it. But the more we started to hear, we realized like it was bad. When we got there, we all went up to hug him, and we didn't know what to expect. He had a headlamp on, he had his boots on, and he'd been out working all day at the Emergency Management Center. And we said, Dudley, are you okay? Are you okay personally? Is your family okay? Is everything good? He goes, we're better off than most, and we need to go find the rest of them. And he turned around, got back on the helicopter, and went back out. So when we vote here, we have these votes, we allocate the money. I can tell you the guy we had at the helm, he wasn't just at the helm up here in a suit and tie leading the money side of it. He was muddy, had probably been up 48-something hours, had to go to a hotel across state lines, I think, to even get somewhere he could get some rest. And he was out there helping the people that had it the worst on the ground and saying they had it way worse than I did. It's time to go help them. So thank you, Doug. Thank you for your leadership on this since the storm happened. Thank you. Thank you.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Guilford, Representative Blust, arise?
Point of personal privilege.
Gentleman's recognized for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This being the last session we will hold prior to Memorial Day, and since we're gone next week for the entire week, I thought it would be fitting and proper to take a moment to remember those who gave their lives that this nation might live. On June 23, 1963, in an earlier version of a speech that came to be known as I Have a Dream, Martin Luther King said this of the fight for freedom. Even if they try to kill you, you develop the inner conviction that there are some things so dear, some things so precious, some things so eternally true that they are worth dying for. So today, let us solemnly remember, let us come somberly to remember, and let us come soberly to remember those who had that inner conviction that those eternally true principles and ideals on which American freedom is founded and based were worth dying for. At the height of the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, President John F. Kennedy did an address to the nation from the Oval Office. He concluded his address by saying, "The cost of freedom is high, but Americans have always paid the cost. And one path we will never take is one of surrender or submission. We seek not the victory of might, but the vindication of right. Not peace at the expense of freedom, but both peace and freedom here in this hemisphere, and we hope around the world. God willing, that goal will be achieved. So today, let's remember those who willingly walked into the valley of the shadow of death to achieve that goal of peace and freedom for us. We owe them an immeasurable debt because, as author Charles Province once wrote, it's the soldier, not the minister, who has given us freedom of religion. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who has given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who has given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier, not the lawyer, who has given us a right to a fair trial. It's the soldier, not the politician, who has given us the right to vote. It's the soldier, not the community organizer, who has given us the right to protest. And it's the soldier who salutes the flag, who serves beneath the flag, and whose coffin is draped by the flag, that has made it possible for the protester to burn the flag. So how can we ever repay these great Americans? How can we ever honor them enough? Perhaps no one in history has articulated how you honor the fallen more than did Lincoln at Gettysburg. You have to do it with deeds rather than words. So recall these immortal words. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. We here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, but that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom. So if we will honor them, we can help create that new birth of freedom of which Lincoln speaks. Last night when I got home, I was just flipping through the channels, and the movie Flags of Our Father just happened to be on, Flags of Our Fathers, about the people, the Marines who raised the flag on Mount Suribachi and Iwo Jima. And it's one of those movies, if it's on, I just leave it on. Even if I'm doing something else, I just like to see it again and again. But I thought, what a perfect example, just randomly chosen because it was on TV, to illustrate a point. The Wounded Warrior Project, you all may be familiar with their work. They have come up with a list of 7 attributes. And every mailing I get from them, there's a little square sticker that has these words on them. And think about these words. These are the attributes they say are possessed by the American soldier. And it's true because we see it in action. I'm sure there's exceptions, but almost invariably they have these attributes: duty, honor, courage, commitment, integrity, country, service. And I thought, man, Iwo Jima shows that. In that battle, we invaded that island because it was about halfway between our air bases in the Marianas Island and Japan when we were bombing Japan, hoping they would surrender so we wouldn't have to lose 1 million men invading them. We invaded that island because that would be a place for shot up planes to find refuge and land and save American airmen. So 6,800 Marines gave their lives to save fellow Americans. If that's not an example for us to emulate, I can't figure out what it might be. It was a group of Marines of who Admiral Nimitz, the Pacific Theater commander, said afterwards, uncommon courage was a common virtue. So I think, Mr. Speaker, if we really want to honor those who gave their lives, the best way we can honor them is to emulate them. And I'm thinking, and so I won't mention here, let's just mention Congress. How often do you see those attributes in action that we see from all of our soldiers? How often do you see them in the political class? And I'm thinking, you know what? If those of us in politics would adopt those attributes for ourselves, the example it would set, I think, would inspire people. If people honored us as much as because of our actions, as much as they do their armed forces, we could probably have a new birth of freedom, and we would probably see big differences in what happens in this country. And I'll conclude by saying one thing. If you study history, it becomes evident that without United States Armed Forces, there would be no freedom in the world. Without United States Armed Forces and those who gave their lives, tyranny would have triumphed. Without United States Armed Forces and those who gave their lives, dictatorship would dominate. And without United States Armed Forces and those who gave their lives, we would all be subjects, not citizens with rights. So let's never forget that, and let us honor those who laid, as Lincoln said, such a costly sacrifice upon the altar of freedom.
Thank you, Representative Bluss. And members, of course, we'll continue to thank over the Memorial Day weekend of some of the comments Representative Bluss gave about those who've given their life in service to this country, and which is the purpose of Memorial Day. And thank you for those comments. Any further notices or announcements? As members know, next week there will be no recorded votes and no committee meetings held. Of course, the work will continue. We'll begin in earnest the following week back in the committee process. We're through the crossover period now, through the initial budget phase, and we'll be taking a look at a number of Senate bills that need some work on them. I'm sure our chairs will take care of those things. And just be on the lookout for a full committee schedule when we come back the week after next. And that's all the updates the chair has. Chair, finally, would thank both my caucus, my staff as well, for the hard work this week, the chairs. It was a gargantuan task to get all of those things together, the budget and the Helene bill, and I thank Representative Reeves and his caucus as well for the civil debate and the discussions that went along in getting those bills together. So thank the body for your honorable service this week. Any further notices or announcements? Seeing none, the gentleman from Wayne, Representative Bell, is recognized for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move the House to now adjourn to reconvene Friday, May 23rd at 10 a.m., subject to the standard stipulations set forth in Rule 15.1.
Representative Bell moves, seconded by Representative Dixon, that the House do now adjourn to reconvene Friday, May 23rd at 10 a.m., subject to the standard stipulations set forth in Rule 15.1. All those in favor will say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the House is now adjourned.